Welcome everybody to this session. This is jointly organized by ICLEI and the Erasmus Center for Data Analytics in the University of Rotterdam, the Erasmus University of Rotterdam. We are very glad to have you here. The agenda for today, we will have a 1 hour and a half webinar where we would like to make it very interactive, discussing how urban data platforms can drive the green transition that we are looking for. The agenda for today, as I said before, we will start briefly now with a 5-minute introduction. Then we will have a keynote speaker, Dr. Marcel van Oosterhout from the Erasmus University, and then we will go deep dive on different experiences of 3 cities that are using data in order to foster the green transition. At the end, we will have around half an hour and 40 minutes to have a discussion with you, so we encourage you to participate actively in this webinar. The house rules for today, of course, no fire drills planned for today. We hope that everything will be fine, that technology will not play us bad today, that we will be motivated to participate and also to have a nice moment of knowledge and experiences together with our panelists. I will invite you to ask questions through the questions and answer panel that we have. Myself and my colleague Esben Petrov, that we are going to manage your questions in order to have the correct answer for your expectations. Another thing that is important is that some of your questions we will keep to be used in the panel, and as we are recording this session and we would like to then publish the webinar video, we have established that you cannot unmute yourself this time. Just if you have any concern about us recording the document, please write us in the question and answer or in the chat area, so we can handle this. My name is Alice Daniela Torres. I am an officer of Sustainable Resources, Climate Resilience and ICLEI Europe, and we are very, very happy to have you here and looking forward to start our session. Our speakers are wonderful, and I am very happy to manage to have them on board for this session. I am very pleased to share with you our speakers' short profile. But just to tell you that we have a diversity of experts and practitioners of the use of data in cities towards a green transition. So we have Dr. Marcel van Oosterhout from the Erasmus Center of Data Analytics. We have Maria Söderlind from the city of Umeå. We have Jens Bley from HafenCity University in Hamburg, and we have Roland van der Heijden from the city of Rotterdam. So we have a diversity of geographies and experiences today in our session. So just to warm up a little the discussion and why we are here today, I know that most of you are familiar with the European Green Deal, the new policy framework that is driving green innovation in Europe. So the question that we would like to answer today in this webinar is how urban data platforms can support the need for the accelerated actions that the Green Deal is asking us. We need a green transition, we need a just transition. So we are going to explore today how urban data platforms can support this journey that is coming. On the other side, another question that we would like to answer during this webinar, and also to discuss with you in the panel session, is that it's very important for us to understand how the exchange of this data that is being generated in the different data platforms that are existing in the context of Europe and the cities and worldwide can promote the green innovation that we need to meet the ambition goals of the EU Green Deal. We know that there's a lot of data generated on a city level from industry, from environment, from assets, even from us as citizens and from the government, but it's very important to know how are we going to consume this data to make the changes we need for a green transition. So by saying that, thank you very much for everybody to be here, and looking forward to have a very interactive discussion with you. Please don't be shy, because the success of this webinar is based on your input to the discussions that we are going to have. Saying that, I would like to give the floor to our first speaker, Dr. Marcel van Oosterhout. As I said before, from the Erasmus Center of Data Analytics. For us, it's a pleasure to have him here. For us, he's our reference and key experts on open data platforms. And we are so happy to have Dr. Oosterhout here. And Marcel, please, the floor is yours. You can share your slides. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Alice. I hope everyone is able to hear me and everyone can see my screen. I guess that's okay.
Yes, we can see. Marcel, can you put your camera on, please?
Camera off?
On.
We see you.
Okay, perfect. Good.
Great. So thank you for this opportunity to present some of the findings of the study that we conducted last year on the state of development on urban data platforms in Europe. And I will discuss some of the highlights of this study in this presentation. First, looking at the importance of data, of course, we're still a little bit in the middle of the COVID situation. And there we learned that data is really important. Think about how we sense the actual status from testing, from measuring in sewers. Think about how we interpret the data and perhaps predict how the virus will spread, but also think about how we respond and inform our citizens about actions to take, and also how we visualize this data, for instance, in platforms like this. So data quality is really important, and the same is also the case for cities. And for cities, urban data platforms is an important means to better manage data in your city. So how do we define an open urban data platform? It's basically a platform or a number of platforms that connect stakeholders via digital technologies. It combines different data sources between city systems and infrastructure of both public and private stakeholders, and it creates value by making this data findable and also accessible. The objective is to support decision making, but also to create a platform for innovation, and in the end, contribute to triple bottom line value: people, planet, and profit. And here you see two perspectives: an organizational perspective, the type of stakeholders that are involved in such a platform, and a high-level architecture, starting from sensors and the data that they generate, a central intelligence, a digital twin where data can be visualized, and AI and data-driven solutions and apps on top of it. Going to the Green Deal, such a platform can facilitate all kinds of interesting applications in line with the Green Deal. Think, for instance, about the energy transition. This is an example of Rotterdam, where the heat demand was analyzed and a map was created where potentials for improvements in energy was mapped onto different buildings. Another example here is from Barcelona, where contamination levels were predicted based on combining different types of data, like weather data, traffic data, and so on. And then this was used to visualize and inform citizens, but also to take specific measures. For instance, changing the traffic lights to speed traffic in the city. These are just two examples of how data managed via an urban data platform can facilitate the Green Deal. Well, we did a study. There were over 80 cities joining, and in this map you get a high-level overview of the cities that were involved and also their stage of development. And what we see is still early days. We have almost 44% are in the exploring and planning phase, 25% are currently designing, and implementing first elements of a platform, and in about 30% there is already an urban data platform operational. But of course that means they're still working on it, but at least something is already running. If you look at the cities, of course, still a lot of data is covered into data silos, as we call it. And many cities have taken the initiative to start combining this data into one platform within the municipality as a step towards developing such an urban data platform. And we also found some cases in this research where an urban data platform was developed outside the context of the municipality, so driven by, let's say, external stakeholders. The study also shows that relatively recently, let's say since 2014, 2015, the real development has started, and more cities have started projects to really start working on the development of these platforms. If you look at the development path for these open urban data platforms, we found that most cities start with, let's say, an traditional open data platform, a data repository where you can find all kinds of data sets which you can download and to make use of. As a next step, many cities are working on a city dashboard where you can visualize how city is performing, with also some performance monitoring. And as a next step, using that dashboard or sometimes even a digital twin to visualize data and support decision making in the city by making data visible and having certain algorithms deciding upon what to do with the data. And the end perspective, what we see is, and already we see a few examples of that, that this urban data platform will become a real marketplace, a place where data can be shared and where all kinds of new innovations can be developed on top of that data marketplace. So here you see the type of functionalities that we asked in this study, and most of the platforms have a basic functionality like making this data available, creating different stakeholders, and only a few platforms at this moment facilitate this data marketplace with functionalities like a software development toolkit, price setting mechanisms, etc. But a lot of the platforms envision that this will be supported in the near future. So this data marketplace is something that most of the platforms are really developing towards. If we look at the motives, so why did cities develop these open urban data platforms? Basically, of course, there are three groups of reasons. It's financial reasons, it's environmental reasons, and it's social reasons. And so far, as most important is, let's say, improving the decision making by policymakers. It's creating more cost-efficient and effective operations, for instance, by combining different types of data. And it's also a way to create a platform for innovation, to co-create new services by bringing data together and also actively engaging with citizens. And this is followed by more, let's say, environmental reasons, and the more social objectives are perceived at this moment as less important. We also asked about the current application areas of urban data platforms, and then basically three groups of applications and use stand out. First and foremost, mobility and logistics. Secondly, the built environment. And thirdly, of course, the energy-related applications. Very important is to analyze which factors are important to drive the adoption and use of these platforms, and which factors hinder the use of these platforms. And we found out that trust is a key element. So having trust among the involved partners is key, of course, towards the adoption and use of these platforms. This is followed by triple helix collaboration. So the collaboration between public stakeholders, private stakeholders, and academia, each with their own capabilities and strengths. And if you're able to bring those capabilities together, you have a great ecosystem to really develop these platforms. And thirdly, of course, the use of open data standards. You have to avoid that data is stuck in silos, and open data standards can facilitate the sharing of data between stakeholders. Then at the, let's say, the barriers, the inhibitors, there are several types of barriers. On the one hand, it's the contractual complexities. It's quite complex to collaborate in such a public-private setting. All kinds of legislation, unfortunately, still restrict the development of these platforms. Think about privacy legislation and what can I actually do with the data. Procurement legislation. This is not a standard buy from the shelf type of procurement, so it requires more innovative ways for cities to work with private stakeholders. Cybersecurity is a concern, and also the ethics and the societal concerns. What is happening with my data? And also the inclusiveness of these platforms. Are the citizens really able to work with these platforms or the apps that basically are working with these platforms? Well, looking at the governance, who's taking the lead? We found out in the study that, of course, municipalities really take the lead. Usually they are the platform owner. The development usually is outsourced, but we also see all kinds of public-private collaborations. And it's, of course, that's, I would say, logic, because having such a platform and making it successful really requires that different types of capabilities are combined. Some more suitable for public stakeholders, like setting the privacy norms, determining rules for data ownership, thinking about platform access, while other type of capabilities like pricing, branding, how to innovate and run the platform, of course, these are typically much better suited for private stakeholders. We also found out that, unfortunately, there's relatively little citizen engagement yet. There are quite a number of ways in which you can involve your citizens. Here you see an example, the city of Rotterdam, where they have an app where citizens can report about their environment. But most of these options are not used that much yet. And we think there are steps to be made. This is perhaps a little bit complex picture, but this shows that such an open urban data platform is part of a much broader platform ecosystem. If you look at the bottom side of this graph, you see those that own the data owners. This can be private organizations, public organizations, citizens, but also the academia. They share the data, and there can be data aggregators. There will also be data spaces, like the European Commission is setting up all kinds of data spaces, and these all provide data sources towards the Open Urban Data Platform. The Open Urban Data Platform itself can have and will have different types of functionalities, like a marketplace, like a place where data is visualized, sometimes in a 3D environment, and all kinds of analytics on top of that. And this is the basis then for innovation. For instance, startups can develop all kinds of apps, which again are then offered towards their customers, towards citizens, but also direct connections, direct use of data, for instance, by companies that enhance their services with data from the Open Urban Data Platform. In this figure, you also see, of course, there will be multiple Open Urban Data Platforms. Basically, all the big cities are developing such a platform. And for apps to work and to have their business model successful, of course, it should not only work in one city. So it's really important that interoperability across these different platforms is realized, which requires that certain data standards are used by all cities that are developing these platforms. And then, of course, this is all taking place in the cloud more and more. What we also see is that there are all kinds of new business models in this ecosystem which become available. Think about monetizing your data, aggregation of data, business models for the platform operator, providing an algorithm as a service, app-related business models by looking into data quality and sharing data as a service, specific technology as a service, cloud infrastructure as a service, but also more advanced business models, for instance, linking different citizens and crowdsourcing from citizens. So there are a lot of opportunities for new business models, but of course, existing companies need to think about their current business model. Will it still hold, or do they need to rethink how they can tap into this new platform ecosystem? And then in the middle, we have the data platform, which more and more will also support decision-making in cities. This is called the digital twin. And here you see how this works. Different data from fixed objects, moving objects, environmental objects is brought together in a 3D model of the city. And this really supports a decision cycle for cities. You can start predicting what's going to happen. You can analyze what happened in the past and use that to basically support your decision making. To conclude, this study brings, let's say, 9 key takeaways. So the first one is data is really a key strategic resource for cities. Secondly, that urban data platforms are a vital infrastructure for cities. They enable triple bottom line value. They offer the cities a way to remain in control of their data, to support decision making, and also scale all kinds of smart city initiatives. The development of urban data platforms is still in an early stage in Europe, and there's no one-size-fits-all development approach. Governance capabilities and triple helix collaboration build the trust which is needed for these platforms to work. Capability building is needed within the municipality and by working in the triple helix collaboration. And data governance is a crucial capability. This is about quality management, open data standards, data ownership, and data security. Citizen engagement should be considered from the start. That's really important. And in the development, you have to really use an agile mindset and use a continuous improvement approach. And finally, think about regional solutions and collaborations, especially for smaller cities. So this is the key findings that I would like to share, and I now give it back to the moderator.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Marcel. Wonderful presentation, wonderful insights from this report. I think it reflects years of experience working on this, and also, as I said before, we are very glad that you have made this presentation as clear as possible for us to understand the relevance of urban data platforms to drive this transition. I would again thank you very much for sharing the results of the report and also your insights here. We have posted the report link in the chat. And before we continue, I would like to ask 2 questions that our audience have come to you. Just probably we will focus only on the first of it. It's mainly related to how long have you been working on this? How long this issue of urban data platforms have been on the market of the cities? Since when cities are working on this?
As I briefly mentioned, let's say most cities started around 2015, 2016, 2017, and then the number grew over time. So it's, let's say, the past 4 years, it really has taken off. Of course, there were a lot of initiatives a little bit related, like, of course, open data platforms are of course much longer, but really this more integral perspective on an urban data platform, that's of course more recent.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you very much. Another question, Marcel, before we change to our next session. There's a question about the standards. You mentioned the importance of a standard in the urban data platforms. Can you refer some of them, or you can give us some examples of data standards already used across cities, and they are most likely to be used by most of them in the future?
Well, there are specific standards. I cannot say exactly which standards now are most used, but I think it's better to have a look at the report where this is described in more detail.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you very much. And I think that thank you very much, Marcel. We can see that in the report, and also it's important to know that that Europe is working for years also in a standardization process for smart cities and urban data platforms. So it's very good that that in this report we have this analysis. Thank you. Thank you very much, Marcel. So in that sense, I'm going to keep some more questions for you for the panel discussion. And thank you very much for doing the first introductory session. So now we are going to the second part of our webinar, and now we are going to see case studies of how urban data platforms and the data itself is being used in different contexts. So now I would like to give the floor to Maria Söderlind from the city of Umeå in Sweden. Please, Maria, can you share your screen? So Maria is a project manager for the Ruggedize project, and specifically for the smart solution of the smart open data city decision platform. Maria will share with us how we can have a citizen-focused data. So Maria, thank you very much for presenting to us. Please go ahead.
Yes, can you just confirm that you can see my screen now?
Yes, we can see.
Great, thank you. So I'm going to talk about citizen-focused data. And what really do we mean by that? To engage citizens' trust by using data. Can we really accomplish that? Because some people, a lot of people might argue data is just numbers. It's boring, doesn't say me anything. But the thing is that you need to make the data understandable for the citizens. And the key to that is to use visualizations. So this really is my main message for you today. I have to move something here. Now, this is my main message for you today. That data and visualizations are too much. And what do I mean by that? Well, I really believe in open data and in being transparent. And if we can measure the progress, because today is about green transitions, and if we can measure the progress, then we should share it to the citizens, to engage them. But we have to do it in an understandable way. So if you want to do something and engage the citizens, you need to start yourself to ask yourself, do we have a goal? Do we have a goal by what we want to achieve? And most likely you do have a goal. Then you ask yourself, are there any data connected with this? And most likely there are, right? Then you can start to think, can we measure the progress? Because we know want to do something. Can we measure the progress? And most likely you can. So now you have a goal, you have data connected with it, and you can measure the progress. And then you have to visualize that for the citizens. So you use visualizations to make them see this goal. It will make it so much easier for them and to get their engagement and trust if you share this in an understandable way. You can show the progress or the lack of it. And then you create a dashboard to visualize this. And then you have to also remember that even if there are lack of progress, that is just as important. Hey guys, we're not doing really good right now. The trend indicates we're not going to reach our goal. because if it doesn't even give them a chance to engage, they really can't do that. And you also need to remember that citizens are competitive. So you can use that to help them engage in that. We want to do this. Okay, give it to us. We can do something about this. And we need also to remember that the goal is ours, not just in you and me, it's ours as in the community. So I have to give them a chance to. So to try to make this a little bit clearer what I mean, I'm going to show you an example. So assume that we want to do a green transition. We want to lower the amount of waste. This goal is pretty hard to achieve if we don't get citizen engagement. Would you agree? Because after all, it's you and me, my neighbor, my friends, we are the ones who throw away things. So if we can't onboard everyone, there's no way we're going to reach this goal. So how can we get citizen engagement in this? Well, we could start by just sharing the data. At least we have given them something right now. It's a good start. But as I said in the beginning, it's just numbers. And it really doesn't say so much about the progress right now. If they want to know something about the progress, they will have to download it and make some calculations themselves. But if we instead were to tell them to create a dashboard, building on this data that we are sharing with them, and we tell them the goal we have, we want to lower the amount of waste. And our goal is that no citizens will throw away more than this amount. And then maybe we can visualize something. So using the data I showed you, we had a chart. And now everything is a bit clearer, can't you see? Just by looking at this chart, no words needed. You kind of understand that the years that have a red bar, we didn't reach the goal. But the years with the green bar, yay, we did reach the goal. So it's more understandable than just the numbers. But still, if we want citizen engagement, right now they have no way to contribute to reaching the goal, because this is historical data. All right, last year we reached the goal, but how can I want to see where we are right now. So if we on this dashboard were to add the progress or lack of it, and we add this chart on it also, now you can see for each month how does it look, and we have added the trend. So this is the goal. Right now the trend looks like we're going to reach it, but maybe it will go like this after some couple of months, and they say, oh, this doesn't look good. We have to better ourselves, not throw away so much things. We have given them a chance to be engaged. So if we want to use data to engage citizens and gain their trust for this, then we have to start to look at them as a part of the solution, not as a part of the problem. And we have to present the data and where we are in an understandable way. Because all the citizens, they do want this green transition. Don't assume otherwise. We all want it. So what we want to do, we want to, today we might feel that the citizens are resisting this change. It seems that they doesn't want it, but we know they want it really. So what we want to do, we want to transfer that into feeling that they want it. Because you ask yourself, does they even know that we have a goal? Do they know what we are trying to achieve? Have we been open with it all the ways we can? But by making data presented in an understandable way, we can go from feeling that the citizens are resisting into that they are resisting. Because people want to be informed and updated about everything. We have felt that during this year, during this pandemic, the numbers maybe doesn't say as much as the visualizations they present to us. So I'm going to end my presentation with the words I started, because this is my main message to you. This is what I want you to remember tomorrow. Data and visualization are too much. That's what you have to use if you want citizen engagement and citizen trust. So thank you. So I will give it back to you, moderator.
Thank you very much, Maria, for this inspiring presentation of the importance of having this data translated to normal citizens like you and me. I think that you have put in the table of the discussion the importance of bringing this data for the main beneficiaries, which at the end are the citizens. Thank you very much for your presentation. We are now going to go to the next presentation, and we will keep the questions for the end, okay? Because we have several and we still need to process them. So now I would like to give the floor to our second presenter, Roland van der Heijden from the municipality of Rotterdam. Roland will approach now how to create a trust for the digital city, this issue of trust that Marcel was mentioning in the beginning in his first presentation, the importance of bringing trust to the city, to the citizens, and then it's a perfect continuation of Maria's presentation on creating trust for citizens also. Roland, welcome, and please go ahead. We can see you and see your presentation.
Thank you. Good morning, everybody. Yes, I would like to tell you how we in Rotterdam, from the Digital City program, of which I am the program manager, try to work on creating trust in the development of our platform and the application on top of that. But first, I think it's important that when we're talking about developing a platform, it's important to see from what kind of perspective you look at it. And we in Rotterdam chose not to choose the perspective of the municipality, but the perspective of the ecosystem, and see what does the ecosystem need to be developed towards a fully functional digital ecosystem. And in that sense, we positioned our platform more in the middle of the ecosystem, and that raises a lot of new questions, also related to trust. So, my excuse for a lot of text. Normally I use pictures, but it was pretty late last night, so I had to stay to the text. But we really believe in Rotterdam that it's important to develop a really successful and thriving digital ecosystem. It is important that all the participants in the ecosystem trust each other and also trust the underlying digital infrastructure on which they build their functionalities and discussions and everything they do on top of that. So it's really important to understand that. And we also believe that the Urban Platform is in that sense really the centerpiece of that digital infrastructure. If we really want to activate that ecosystem, then the platform is, in our opinion, one of the important things to really build up there. So our research question for that point is that we look at from how can we create trust amongst all those participants in the ecosystem as a whole, of course, but also the platform as a part of that. And mainly, and that's also relating to what I was telling by the first sheet, what kind of role does a municipality have in that development of that platform? And how can the municipality contribute to creating trust in that ecosystem? Now, and when we look at that question or that ecosystem, then we think that all the participants in that ecosystem is everybody who has an interest in Rotterdam. So it's very broad defined. Of course, you can make it more specific in terms of inhabitants, companies, research institutes, etc. But the essence is that everyone at a certain point in time wants to know something about Rotterdam or citizens or buildings or whatever can be part of that ecosystem. And what is then that digital ecosystem? And we see it as some kind of loosely coupled interconnected participants in that network, with all as a same common subject, all everything that's connected to what's happening in Rotterdam. So we have that ecosystem with all those participants in it, who are not only in most cases users of data, but can also be at the same time a data source. And we also have developers of applications within that ecosystem to bind those users around some kind of service. Now, and in the middle, of course, we see that open platform. And also, as Marcel also referred to, that ecosystem is also, again, not a thing on itself, but is also interconnected to other ecosystems around us. Rotterdam is not part of one ecosystem, but of a lot of ecosystems. So when we look at that and we see the municipality, then we see, okay, but the municipality has also several roles in this. And we are also a data source in that ecosystem, but we also will develop applications or will be a contractor for development of applications. And we are, of course, a user within that system, but, and as you would say, do we also have a role in the development of that platform? Now, so when you look at trust again, then you see there need to be trust in the data sources. The data need to be of quality, they need to be continuously delivered at a acceptable price, etc., etc. So there are a lot of things to say about data sources and how people look at it to get trust in that. The same you can also see about applications and services. So you need to have, there need to be some kind of reliability there, and in deliverance of the service, but also in the quality of the service. And as a third, you can also look at the urban platform. What is important for people to have trust in that urban platform? Now, of course, the main things are, I think, security and privacy, and management and maintenance of the platform, and of course, what you could say, the rule of the games. What is possible on the platform? What is allowed? What is it? And who is making that rules? So, in those aspects, again, you can think, how can we create that? And by how can we create that, we can also ask the same question again. What kind of role as a municipality do we have in that? And what kind of role will contribute the most to that creating trust? Giving that at the same time, we also want to have optimal room for development of the platform in a commercial sense. So we're really balancing between, okay, how can we have a maximum commercial exploitation and at the same time have a maximum form of trust in the platform. Now, when you look at that ecosystem, then you see we have all kinds of different roles in there. So we have, of course, those data sources. There are companies, also citizens, but all kinds of participants who have data that will be made available. At the same time, we have all kinds of startups or other kinds of companies who are building smart applications based on that data. And of course, we have the users. We have users, but at the same time, you see we have also customers, especially when you look at the platform in a more service-oriented way or in a more commercial-oriented way. There's also a difference between users and customers. And of course, then we have the platform. But when we look at the platform, we see a lot of roles there, a lot of other roles than outside of the platform. And when you're talking about the platform, it's also important to make distinction between the development phase and the operational phase. And in the development phase, we mainly see roles of parties who need to boost the whole process some way. There need to be some party who's really taking the lead in developing. There's the interconnector who brings parties together and creating a network of parties that are interested in doing this. We see the investor's role, and especially we see a role for the early investments, the really risky ones. There's a difference between a very early stage invest in the platform or invest in a platform that you already know will make a benefit for you. Then we have the owner's role, and the exploitive role. And when you look at the operational phase, also the gatekeeping role comes in. Now, and we try to think, okay, what kind of roles as a government should we play in this, and how can we contribute from there to trust, to creating trust? But again, we see that most important tension between maximal commercial exploitation versus the public interest. So it's also very important to think, how do we organize a governance structure in that ecosystem? And one thing, but I will come back to that later, is important that we believe that we should do that in co-creation with the market, instead of telling ourselves this is the way it should be. Now, and then we come to the aspect, okay, what are we really doing to creating that trust? So we see different target groups, and we approach them in a different way. When we talk about research institutes, we really try to involve them in the whole development of the platform. We have all kinds of research tracks with different kind of research institutes. So we try to learn together. And at the same time, we also try to transform all those tracks into a more structural research network. And when you look at companies, you see different sources of different types of companies. And we have companies who are possibly involved in development of the platform. And there we look at forms of how we can do that in co-creation. And the first thing that we already did is a market consultation that we did last year. And now we are preparing our competitive dialogue procurement, which allows us to work together with market parties in developing the platform. And we are now in the decision-making process of being the pre-investor, the risk investor, as a municipality in this process to bring the whole thing into action. Now, when you look at companies as developers, we have developed together with a lot of companies different applications already who work on top of that platform. And we're working on what we call a call to action. In Rotterdam, we have organized a network of companies who are willing to work together with the municipality to create a digital ecosystem. And in that process, in that network, you can bring in call to action to motivate and activate those companies to work together. Now, that's the same thing we are also doing when you look at companies as a data source. And we also have call to action to bring them into action into that network. And we are with some of them, we are working on creating new smart data sources. Now, then, of course, we have the citizens. Very important. We have already, during the last period, we have several meetings had with what we call the digicens. Those citizens who are really involved in digitization, but they're not necessarily representative for all the citizens. They're a particular group of citizens. And it's very important to understand that because there are also a whole lot of citizens that you might lose in this process. But those bigger group at this stage, they're mainly connected through the development of applications. And I will show you one example later. And in the next stage, they will be more involved directly in the development of the platform. At this moment, we think that platform development is a bit abstract to bring the broader group of citizens in direct involvement at this moment. And when we look at other governments, we have all kinds of forums in which we work together, and from there creating the same kind of standards, etc., so we can build also trust within the broader network of governments and try to create developments of interoperability between platforms, etc., etc. And at last, I want to show you a concrete example of how we work together with citizens in Rotterdam in development of applications, and in this case, what we call the time and place independent participation. So we're really try to develop together with citizens a tool that really helps them to participate in complex problems in the city regarding, for example, new spatial planning issues. And on the right, you see the case study that we've done. It's Rotterdam. There's a square that needs to be redesigned. And so we offered a number of citizens living around that square the opportunity to develop their own square in a for them recognizable 3D surroundings. So they really could put pieces in there of play pieces or trees or benches or whatever kind of things, and they could really design their own square. The next step was that they could compare the different designs of each participant in this process. And as a third step, they could walk around really on the square itself, and with augmented reality, they could visualize their own plans. And they could see what their plan was doing to the square. Now, that's the first step, in our opinion, in how you can take, also regarding to our previous speaker, visualization is so powerful that we really believe that it's necessary to make complex issues more comprehensible for citizens. And when you combine that to all kinds of gamification principles, etc., you can really help complex issues be better understood by your citizens. In such surroundings, a citizen puts a tree somewhere and the system gives back, it's not possible to put it here because of cables and lines in the underground, but maybe 5 meters to the left, or you could put a bench here, or something with budget restrictions, or that kind of thing. So you can imagine how visualization combined with new digital techniques and methods and combined with gamification principles offers all kinds of new possibilities to really let citizens participate in a language and use a language that they can understand. And that's what it. And I would get it.
Yes, thank you very much, Roland. Wonderful presentation. Thanks for sharing the importance of creating trust with all stakeholders in the ecosystem of a urban data platform. I think that you have raised a very important issue, which is co-creation with the different actors in the market. And I think that involving different stakeholders like university, research centers, company, citizens themselves and startups, for example, or other governments, as you mentioned, is key for driving the innovation that we need. So thank you very much for your presentation. And now we are going to go for the last presentation of today, and then we will start the panel discussion. We have received a lot of questions from you. Thank you very much to our audience for being so interactive. We invite you to write more questions, and we are going to be ready for the session, for the discussion session. So now I would like to introduce our next speaker, which is Jens Bley from the HafenCity University in Hamburg. Jens, thank you very much for joining us. Jens is going to present his project, which is called Unradar. It's a project that has been part of one initiative led by ICLEI and Google.org, which is the Action Fund. So I invite Jens to share with us his initiative, and thank you very much for your time.
Daniela, thank you very much for having us or having me here. And I already feel inspired by the previous speakers, and I think we'll be reconnecting right after this meeting. So thank you for that connection. Just a little explanation. HafenCity University is a quite unique university. It's focused on metropolitan studies, the built environment, with a stronger becoming focus on the digital city and climate mitigation. And we are actually physically located in Europe's largest inner city development. So we are part of this entire process. So what I'm going to talk about today is basically how we use data as a conversational currency that actually supports experimental governance in identifying urban testbeds for sustainable cities pilot projects and climate mitigation action. So that's a mouthful, and I'll break it down how we have our urban data platform as a contributor to us and us as a contributor to the urban data platform. And I would talk about that we would actually we'll be dealing less with data layers rather than with knowledge layers and how that comes to be. Just to explain to you how we are set up within the ICLAI Action Fund. So it is really a data-driven environmental climate action project funding. We are 6 projects in Europe over the next 2 years. So there's the maximum of 2 years. We have to and want to be very specific in terms of districts and the neighborhoods in our cities, and also make that transferable to the other cities and initiatives and beyond that. So as you can imagine, it is a lot about CO2 emission, the environmental quality improvement, and stakeholder engagement, and to some extent, directly or indirectly, the citizen engagement. So I'm saying that because our project, as you will see, has an indirect impact on the CO2 emission, because we are more an enablement project for stakeholders, including citizens in our city. So we are based in Hamburg, second largest city in Germany, and with a unique governance structure because we are a city-state. So we have that in one kind of jurisdiction, but there are, of course, certain differences. And we are one of the 6 European projects, and we all work with varying sources of data to drive environmental action. And all of us are involved in application or decision-making support systems. We very specifically in the test beds and also in new governance and new guidance. So if we now zoom into our city, we have 7 districts, and we have chosen 3 of those to look into deeper. So how can we objectify, make tangible with multiple stakeholders the identification process of urban testbeds for these sustainable pilots and prototypes? And we believe that that is a key to engage also citizens, because it's going to be a tangible environment in where they can experience prototypes and pilots. And we built on a deep expertise in urban testbeds from various kind of contexts and sources. So, for example, in Altena, we were part of a major project in mobility and changing the mobility structure within a district, within a part of a district. We have been deeply involved as a university, and my partner Jörg Knieling, who's I think also on this today with us here, in large infrastructural test beds for mobility, energy efficiency, solar potential. And thirdly, we also have thrived on experiences that we've made in the inner city, where it was less about climate mitigation, but actually using digital cultural storytelling as a change actor for an inner city slightly neglected area. So we take these components and lead that together with our stakeholder ecosystem. And that is quite important. That's why I mentioned us having a kind of a different state and city structure. So we have included the mayor's office that is kind of across all ministries, but we also have a brand new district coordination office from the city. We also have a climate coordination office, and a close partner of us is the state agency for geoinformation. They actually run the urban data platform. What is unique in Hamburg is that in 2012, by the previous mayor, a law was introduced, and take it as we Germans are quite good with laws. This one actually has proved very, very useful. It's a transparency law, which actually obliges all the ministries to provide open data to the open data platform, which is now called the transparency data platform. And that is a living and dynamic environment, as we've heard earlier on from Marcel. So when we talk about our data-driven approach, there are 2 components. Yes, we look into the urban data platform. Yes, we look for, I call it the hard currency of, when we look at mobility, for example, you know, the electric charging stations, we have many data layers from the city urban data portal. That is really a key source for us to help identifying what, and have data that we use as this conversational currency. We can identify the solar energy surfaces, but we also have teamed up with Google EIE, so the Environmental Insight Explorers. They have different ways of approaching it, and very soon, in the next few weeks, we'll be looking into their data sets and see how can they scale down from, and this is important for us, and onto a local, onto a district or even a sub-district entity level for us to identify urban test beds in an ideal scenario. And we have chosen to not just look at the hard currency data, but actually it is really important for us, and this is what I call the knowledge layers that we want to contribute into the master portal of the urban data platform, which is basically, we look at, does a district or even on a sub-district level have a local sustainability strategy or a plan? Is there a transparency about the transitional goals? Because this is so important. This is part of this conversational currency and what Maria referred to. If you don't have transitional goals that are tangible, understandable, citizen engagement is not going to happen. Citizen engagement is part of our ecosystem in Hamburg. So we talk about the quadruple helix, and quadruple helix in this case means it doesn't have to be citizens by themselves, but it also could be civic organizations representing certain types of communities. So we are really looking into, is it on the district level, on a local level, is there a quadruple helix ecosystem in place? How does it work? What is the potential for citizens engagement? What are the experiences? So we are actually just mapping in terms of almost like, have there been physical, digital engagements? What has been the reach of the engagements? What has been the outcome in terms of policy? And this all feeds back into, if you as a district or as a sub-district zone would qualify ideally as being an urban testbed in one of our 3 climate issues, the mobility, of course, but also energy efficiency and solar potential. So we look into that, and we are doing that by applying a methodology called the experimental governance. So we do a kind of co-design process with the stakeholders, and we will then have them engaged over almost the entire time and see if they have a certain experimental governance readiness. So that is a criteria, that's a key performance indicator to project if that area is ideal for urban prototypes and urban test beds as such. And of course, you can imagine that we are really keen on seeing, are they actually used to data-driven support decision-making? In what kind of context? And what is the data availability? A lot breaks down to city level, but not on district level. So that's what we are basically focusing on. And our activities, and we are very experienced in engaging different stakeholders and all kinds of interactive, non-interactive, digital digital processes. First of all, we have just done the ecosystem mapping. We are going to go into a co-design sprint. We want to have the stakeholders on board. We do talk about, of course, the impact assessment, and part of the impact assessment strategy is also involving those stakeholders in co-designing the impact assessment with us, because otherwise there would be no leaving behind. And in that time that we have, which is until September next year, we will have a prototype, a refined prototype, apply the experimental governance, and then transfer into, as we've just agreed with our state agency, transfer into the master portal. So it is a environment that people are already used to as stakeholders from the municipality, for example, from the districts. but we will be going beyond that so that citizens or civic organizations can be part in the longer term. And just to finalize, we come from a greater context. Hamburg and Melbourne has had a city pairing by the European Union in 2017 and 18. And we are part of an initiative, Sustainable Melbourne 2030, with 10 energy and climate mitigation initiatives. And it was interesting to see, in Melbourne, we have 10 architectural and urban design organizations already working on the prototypes and the pilots. And then we realized 32 councils in Melbourne. Now, how do we identify where best for which kind of community to exemplify and make tangible the potential of the sustainability and climate mitigation action prototypes and pilots? And that was the inspiration for us to look, let's do it first of all in our hometown. Let's come up with this N-radar, a new normal radar to identify urban test beds. That's what we're doing. And we're feeding it also back into the network of ICLAI, into, of course, our city, where it transfer from district to district. Key for us is too that it fits into the new urban narrative that districts, small localities, and cities in the future will say, this is what was driving us. We wanted to be a sustainable district, so forth, but we are working on this new urban narrative right now. So thank you very much for your attention, and I hope to connect on all digital means possible.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Jens. Thank you very much for this wonderful example of making data from different data platforms real in a decision support tool that is really bringing benefits to the city and citizens also. Thank you very much, Jens. So now I would like to start the discussion. We have 22 minutes. And I think that we will be able to have a fruitful discussion together with all our presenters and our participants and especially our audience. During the presentation, we have received a lot of questions. We have tried to shorten them a little and also try to aggregate them in order to take advantage of time. So now I will ask all our panelists to please turn on your camera, so we can see us all and have a little more interaction with our audience. So I will also like to ask, Roland also to connect. Perfect. We are complete now. Thank you very much. So I will start this debate and this panel for a question to Marcel. Okay, from the audience. Marcel, the first question to you is, can you explain the key challenges when combining data on an urban data platform?
Yes, so I think there are 5 key challenges. So one is, of course, the quality of data that you try to combine, coming from different data sources. Secondly, it's the ownership. So if you combine data which is owned by different stakeholders, there might be some issues. Related to that is the GDPR. If you reuse data for another purpose where it was originally collected, you might run into GDPR issues, so you have to be a little bit careful. Also, the openness and availability of data. So a lot of data is locked in silos, and basically you need agreements and open data standards to access the data and then combine it. But also the ontology. So how is data described, and is, let's say, the same ontology used within different data sets? Because if you need to combine it, you need to basically speak the same language. Otherwise, there are also some translations to be made. So I think these are some of the key challenges when you start combining different types of data.
Thank you very much, Marcel, for summarizing in 5 key points. That is so good. We all took note on them, and I think that in the report we will have more insights about this. Thank you very much. So now that we're talking about data use and the citizen part, I think that is important in order to create the trust. I think that Maria was very inspiring to tell us the importance of visualization for engaging citizens. Maria, we have one question for you specifically with the relationship between visualization and communication, because we can have wonderful visualization tool, but how can we take this to the citizens? Please share with us your experience.
Yeah, I think that's also one of the main challenges, because it doesn't matter how good visualization we do if our citizens aren't made aware of it. And I think we can do it in different ways. We can make the local newspaper find our dashboard. We can, on our own website, enlighten this is, how do you say, put it in the front so everyone can see it. But I think that's something I have to struggle also with in Umeå where I work, to make people aware that we have these data. Where should we put the dashboard so everyone can see them? Because when they find them, they say, oh, wow, I'm going to use this a lot. This says so much. So I really don't know. We have to find different ways. When you have new dashboards, make a press release. I can't hear you, Daniela.
Yeah, Maria, thanks. I think that also part of the innovation is also how to bring the visualization tools to the citizens, no? And I think that raising this issue of co-creation also is important, because if we gather since the beginning, and this was also mentioned by Marcel, involving citizens since the beginning, if we involve them in the design of the visualization tools and everything, could be a good tool. Thank you for sharing the Umeå experience. So now that we have touched co-creation, and I think that Roland was very how can I say, strong in sharing us Rotterdam's vision on involving several stakeholders for a co-creation scheme. Roland, I would like to ask you, we have a question also in the chat, that which governance structures have you put in place in the municipality to do this? Of course, other municipalities with less experience in urban data platforms probably do not have the structured teams to do this. Can you share with us the team, the structure, the governance structure that the municipality has to make this happen?
Yes, I try to, because it's of course something that we're also in the middle in researching what is our position, because when you change the perspective from the municipality towards the ecosystem, the next question is, okay, but what is the legislation, the legitimation for the government to play a role in that? Why don't we leave it to the market? Why don't we wait for Google to come or something like that? So then you need some kind of thinking about, okay, what kind of role do we have as a government there? And then we think, okay, but it's about the ecosystem. So it's really important to change perspective from inside out towards outside in. And then thinking, okay, what is needed to get that ecosystem up and running there? And how can we play as a government a role there? So, and then, as I said, and then we have to struggle between, okay, we want a maximum commercial exploitation, so we want to give maximum room to private companies to develop the platform and to exploit it and to build a business case around it. But at the same time, we want to prevent the so-called Facebook Cambridge Analytica discussions. So when those appear on the platform, then because we as a public entity are connected to that platform, then we want to do something about that. So we want to be able to be involved in what are the rules of the game on that platform. So there's really a tension between those two things. And at this point, we don't know exactly where it goes to. So we really believe that we should develop that governance model, that governance structure, together with the companies that we develop the platform. So that's the process that we're going in. But upfront that we go into that process, we want to know what kind of roles of government do we think at this point, at this starting point for the first phase to have. So we tried to put up a scheme of the different phases that we see in development. and we chose for the first phase several roles as a government that we think that we should play in this phase. But together with the market parties, we will develop that governance structure further towards the operational phase, because then it's a different thing. But it will always be in the background of that tension between commercial exploitation versus public possibility to intervene. And so where we stand now, we believe that we as a government should be in this governance structure, be the party to enhance the whole development by investing, by taking the lead, and at this stage also being the owner, because we also believe that we shouldn't give away the platform with all its aspects before we know what we give away. So that's also a thing to think about. So we want to give maximum room, but we first want to know what that maximum room is. So there's really a process constantly going, and so yeah, the exact governance structure we don't know yet, but we have take some positions towards the first phase of that process, and we will develop it further. But in the end, we see the exploitation of the platform being done by private companies.
Perfect. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Roland. I think that the experience of cities like Rotterdam, which have been working on this for years, is very important for other cities too. And what you mentioned, that it depends on the situation, it depends on the city, it depends on the market. I think that this is the key takeaway messages that cities have to absorb in order to also replicate this type of structures in their territories. Thank you very much, Roland. One other
also
yes?
possible. I also want to add something towards the previous question, because I really subscribe what Maria is telling, that when you really want to discuss with your citizens or other parties in your ecosystem, you really need to use the language they understand, not the language that we are used to use. Exactly. And in that change of thinking, visualization, and in my opinion, especially 3D, is very important to take them along. And so 3D or visualization is not only a data set, it's really a communication language, in my opinion. So a 3D model doesn't need any text or whatever in what kind of language put in the legend. No, you really see what you're seeing. So you don't need any add-ons in what kind of language. 3D is universal, understandable for everybody. So it's much more than data.
Okay, I totally agree with you. Thank you, Roland. And I think that now that you take this point of visualization and bringing numbers or indicators into the front for decision making, I would like to ask Jens. Jens, you mentioned that during the development of the radar structure, you developed some co-creation and co-design processes. Can you elaborate a little? We have one question specifically from the audience on this. Elaborate a little on how you did this process.
We are, Daniel, thank you. We are doing it. So we are designing this now. So that'll be design sprint with the stakeholders. We will have 5 or 6 iterative development sprints in that time with the stakeholders involved, including the structures from the citizen engagement. So that is really key to us. And as Roland was just pointing out, we always keep the urban narrative of what is going to be told in that district, in that locality, in the city at our heart. That is where the conversations between the quadruple stakeholders in the ecosystem communicate. And that's why I talked about the knowledge layers. So that's where we have to have the input in these design sprints from these different stakeholders. What is not the data layer that they're interested in, what is the knowledge and this part of the urban narrative that they can contribute to and they can take away from. That's our idea. And just to finalize, we also do that on a high level with an advisory board that is consistent from these stakeholderships. So they actually review 3-4 times across the project with us. And then we have very seasoned people on board who do the design sprints and those engagement formats.
Thank you very much, Jens. I think that having this co-design and co-creation process. We have different stages from all the presentations. We can see that Umeå is already working on this, Rotterdam too, and you, that not coming directly from the city, but from one stakeholder, also how you are doing this is very important for our audience to know. I would like to ask Marcel again one question that was posted by our audience regarding the evaluation of the impact of the urban data platforms in city sustainability systems. We have a specific question, Marcel, on the impact on the urban power balance. I don't know if you can give us some insights or if the report covers this.
Sorry, it was the impact on what?
The impact of data platforms on the urban power balance. Ivan, I understand these questions specifically on the energy system, for example. I don't know if you can build a little on this.
Yeah. Well, of course, there are examples how you can use such a platform, for instance, to predict availability of renewable energy, bringing together solar energy, wind, linking that to the energy demand in a city, and then basically optimize the availability of this renewable energy. Another example is that and I think Rotterdam has experience with that, where the potential for solar energy on roofs is analyzed with a map of the city, all the buildings, combined with the exact position of roofs, and then basically that then can be used to recommend which roofs are most suitable to put solar panels on. So I think all kinds of examples that you can think about is really using your creativity also. If you combine this data in the right way, there are all kinds of use cases that you can think of.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Marcel. I think that energy is one of the key issues when we talk about data and sustainability on a local level. So thanks for sharing these insights. I have one more question for Jens regarding the collaboration with the city. How are you planning to drive your project into a city's decision-making process? Because this is a project driven by a non-city stakeholder.
That is very true. It is and it is not. So the HafenCity University, right from the beginning, has been conceived as being part of this kind of policy making, this planning in the city. So it's nothing unusual. For example, in 2015, the City Science Lab was founded as a cooperation with the MIT and the city of Hamburg, which is housed. But all the other institutes are already involved, deeply involved in that kind of policy making. But yes, of course, we're still external from that point of view. One of the advisory board is one way of doing it, and especially it has to happen on the district level. And so we have the districts involved. That's why we selected 3, not all 7, and we will have different topical focuses based on already urban testbeds that we've been using, so we can look into the past and see what were the learnings and what can we do better for similar or for smaller or different focus testbeds. So that is already part of that experimental governance component, and that is key to us, that they're involved at the beginning and know that we are exploring with them, with the impact assessment, starting with their impact perspectives and their own expectations and the expectation of the other stakeholders. And then there are the voices to be heard.
Thank you very much, Jens. I think that working with the city since the beginning, and if they have been part of it, will make the project successful. Thanks for sharing that. Maria, we have another question to you regarding if you can share other innovative examples of using different data sets on the city in order to inform citizens on a specific sustainability or green projects. You talk about waste. Do you have other examples to share with our audience?
No, I'm afraid not. We are working with, we are just beginning to, you know what to say about bringing the profit in your own town. But we have one of the struggles we have is exactly one of those that Marcel mentioned. It's the ownership of the data set, because I really believe in open data and I want the data to be open for everyone when we create these dashboards. And a lot of the data that we have people looking at green transition and we have great statistics, but they don't own the data. And then we can't put it out there for everyone. So, but I think we are kind of changing the perspective in Umeå, and the people within the municipality has begun to see that we can really have great usage of the data. So I think we will get there. We're looking at, we share the energy consumption, and then I know they're looking at combining that with other things. Will the energy consumption rise and people should buy more electrical cars? Things like that. Can we combine water consumption with other things? So it's, but at the moment we're working a lot of the dashboards, but we haven't shared anyone more yet. So.
Okay, very good. I think that, no, it's fine. I think that this is an ongoing process, and I think it reflects also one of the key findings of the report that Marcel shared, that this part of getting into the cities and engaging the cities is the most challenging one. So I think that that we understand this, and it's fine. And I think that different cities in Europe are facing challenges to bring the information to the citizens. I don't know if I would like to ask Marcel again. How do you see the future, Marcel? Because now you have shared with us the how can I say the status, the present of how urban data platforms are contributing to the green transition. Can you just give us one or two final thoughts on how do you see the future, and to inspire our participants here to continue working in urban data platforms for a green transition?
Thank you. Yeah, so as I said, I think we still need to learn a lot, but we are learning. And again, today I heard a lot of interesting, also new insights. So it's important that we have this network in Europe where we are able to learn from each other, that public, private stakeholders and academia are able to collaborate and intensify collaboration. And in the end, I think we will see perhaps a convergence in let's say, more using the same principles in the development of these platforms, perhaps even sharing functionalities between cities. And then, of course, in the future, I think even more benefits that we can have using artificial intelligence on top of these platforms to even have greater impacts. So I think this will be an important development for the coming 10 years, where these platforms and the whole ecosystem around it can create great value for cities.
Thank you very much, Marcel. I think that I would like now to finalize the session. We would like to have like half an hour more to continue discussing with you. I think that our presenters have been wonderful. Thank you very much, Jens, Maria, Roland, and Marcel, for your time, for engaging, for giving some news and insights of the wonderful things that you are doing. We hope that with this session we inspire other cities, inspire different organizations present in the session, in order to continue, as I said before, in exploiting the wonderful benefits of urban data platforms, but always focusing on the green transition that we need in order to meet our climate and sustainability goals in Europe and beyond. With that said, I would like to close the session on time, and thank you very much for everything. We will be sharing the recording on the presentation in the Ruggedize project event, and please follow up our different news and projects and initiatives to continue broadening our knowledge and practicing in this wonderful field of urban data platforms. Thank you very much and have a good weekend. Bye bye, and keep yourself healthy.
Thank you. Have a nice day.
Bye bye.
You too.
Bye.
Thank you.
Goodbye.